Do you know what this is? I know you think you do. Keep watching, and in 5 minutes you'll know exactly what it is and why it matters. It was way back in 1880.
A 16-year-old boy was exploring a cave near the pool of Siloam when he stumbled upon an ancient description in an unknown language. What could this be, he thought. He brought it to his teacher, who then published it as the Phoenician inscription in the pool of Siloam.
But as the world would discover, it was much more than that. 10 years later, a resident of Jerusalem would have the inscription removed, cracking it in 2 places. The Ottoman government that controlled Jerusalem at the time would search for the artifact for roughly a year. In 1891, both the original and the forgery were found, and eventually shipped off to the Istanbul Museum, where they remain today. Dating to 700 BC, the Siloam inscription is actually the oldest biblical inscription in Israel, predating the Silver Scrolls by 100 years and the Dead Sea Scrolls by centuries. Written in Proto-Hebrew, a dialect similar to Phoenician, the Siloam inscription marks the exact point in which the diggers from either side of the tunnel met. The tunnel, and this is the story of the tunnel. While the axes were against each other and while 3 cubits were left to cut, the voice of a man called to his counterpart, for there was Zada in the rock. On the right, and on the day of the tunnel being finished, the stonecutters struck each man towards his counterpart, axe against axe, and flowed water from the source to the pool for 1,200 cubits. And 100 cubits was the height over the head of the stonecutters. So what's the big deal? And why were they digging a tunnel under Jerusalem in the first place? To answer these questions, we need to go back in time to the 8th century BC. Assyria was the most powerful nation in the world, with an army and cavalry that could not be stopped. After defeating Samaria in the north and Philistia to the west, King Sennacherib was poised to conquer Judah, the last remaining kingdom in the Levant. The only thing standing in his way, a fortified hilltop city known as Jerusalem. Sennacherib had defeated fortified cities before. Why should Jerusalem be any different? But Hezekiah, king of Judah, had a plan. First, he stripped the temple of its treasures and offered them in tribute to Sennacherib. And when this failed to quench the Assyrian king's lust for world domination, he resorted to Plan B. 2 Chronicles 32, 2-4. When Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come and that he intended to wage war against Jerusalem, he consulted with his officials and military staff about blocking off the water from the springs outside the city, and they helped him. They gathered a large group of people who blocked all the springs in the stream that flowed through the land. Why should the kings of Assyria come and find plenty of water, they said. The same Hezekiah also stopped the upper spring of the waters of Gihon and brought them straight down on the west side of David's city. Hezekiah prospered in all his works. 2 Chronicles 32:30.
Hezekiah's plan was brilliant. Israel is an arid country, and water is hard to come by. Sennacherib's army could last weeks without food, but only days without water. By diverting the waters of the Gihon Spring into the walls of Jerusalem, he was depriving the siege army of its lifeblood.
But how was he going to do this? 2 Kings 20:20. As for the other events of Hezekiah's reign, all his achievements, and how he made the pool and the tunnel by which he brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah?
Hezekiah was going to build a tunnel, a massive tunnel, 1/3 of a mile long, to divert the waters of the Gihon Spring.
So did it work? Was Sennacherib defeated by thirst? Well, no. Although water may have been hard to come by, it was not impossible. There were other sources of water besides the Gihon Spring.
While Sennacherib finished off Lachish, his general-at-arms surrounded Jerusalem with 185,000 soldiers.
Hezekiah lost all hope. Falling on his knees in the temple, he called on God for deliverance. And God answered him. That night the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. 2 Kings 19:35. Sennacherib fled home after that and was killed by his own sons in the temple of his God. In the end, it was a miracle that saved Jerusalem, and not Hezekiah's brilliance. But God was not happy with Hezekiah, as Isaiah told him. You also saw the city of David, that it was great, and you gathered together the waters of the lower pool. You also made a reservoir between the two walls for the water of the old pool. But you did not look to its maker, nor did you have respect for him who fashioned it long ago. Isaiah 22:11.
What a poignant message for our time. When the world looks to technology to save us, God says, "Look to me."
The discovery of Hezekiah's tunnels along with their inscription is an amazing confirmation of the historical accuracy of the Bible. And that's why it matters. So what is it? The Siloam Inscription. But then, you already knew that.
Ouch. Oh. Sure, go ahead.